When Flash Gordon hit theaters in 1974, it wasn't just another adult film, it was a delirious mashup of Saturday matinee, space opera, bawdy burlesque, and low-budget special effects that proved a nurturing arena for a future who's who of Hollywood talent. Billed as an intergalactic romp, it took the chaste cliffhanger world of 1930s Flash Gordon serials and slathered it in sex jokes, stop-motion monsters, and enough camp to power a drag show on Mars. Behind the scenes, it was even stranger, a production that careened between an X-rated shoot, police raids, near Oscar contention, and the accidental training ground for some of cinema's most legendary effects artists. This is the fascinating story of how Flash Gordon came to be. Producer Bill Osco wasn't exactly Hollywood royalty, more like a hustler with a knack for sniffing out the fringes where mature content, cash, and cult cinema collided. Fresh off the underground success of Mona the Virgin Nymph, Osco teamed up with Walter R. Sitchy and Howard Zeem to bankroll Flash Gordon with a budget that started lean, rumored to be somewhere around $470,000, but crept closer to $700,000 as they poured resources into special effects, sets, and potential lawsuits. The money came from a mix of Osco's adult film profits, private backers hungry for a slice of the risque action, and good old-fashioned shoestring creativity. He planned to score a $1 million distribution retainer to help cover the production costs, but when no studio was forthcoming, issues started to spiral out of control. More on that later. For those that haven't seen it, the plot of Flash Gordon is equal parts pulp and delirious parody. Earth is being bombarded by sex rays from the distant planet Porno, turning the population into uncontrollable horn dogs. Our square-jawed hero, Flash Gordon, played by Gregory Lockwist, blasts off alongside his perpetually imperiled lover, Dale Ardor, embodied by soft-core, regular Suzanne Fields, and the endlessly pun-worthy scientist, Dr. Flexi Jerkoff, brought to life by Joseph Hudgens. Their destination, the lair of Emperor Wang the Perverted, played with deliciously over-the-top menace by William Dennis Hunt. Along the way, they brave strange dungeons, stop-motion creatures, a flying deity known as the Great God Porno, and more leather straps than a fetish convention. The hammy, politically incorrect by modern standards, screenplay was penned by Michael Benveniste, who co-directed the flick with Howard Zeem. Interestingly, uncredited input came from William Dennis Hunt, who reportedly played a part in shaping the original script and also worked on his own lines. As mentioned, Benveniste's writing leaned heavily into the camp, carving out a narrative that followed the beats of the classic Flash Gordon serial, but dialed everything up to a ridiculous fever pitch. However, what the team didn't know during the early stages of production is just how important the special effects would become in terms of the film's legacy. For a movie that was conceived as an adult film sex spoof, Flash Gordon ended up functioning like a low-rent boot camp for a generation of FX legends. Working on shoestring budgets and scavenged materials, the team pulled off a dizzying array of old-school techniques. Stop-motion animation, miniatures, matte paintings, forced perspective, and optical composites, often in the same scene. Among the crew were names that would one day dominate Hollywood's blockbuster era. Rick Baker, who would later win multiple Oscars for makeup effects on films like An American Werewolf in London and Men in Black, worked on it. Greg Gine, future model maker for Star Trek and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, lent his miniature expertise. Jim Danforth and Dave Allen, already respected in genre circles, pitched in, with Danforth cheekily credited backwards as Migi Strofnad. And then there was Dennis Muren, an uncredited effects artist, who would go on to become a cornerstone of industrial light and magic, racking up Academy Awards for Star Wars, Terminator 2, and more. Flash Gordon's behind-the-scenes drama also adds to the legacy. Midway through the shoot, the money started drying up. No surprise for a project that was already running on the fumes of Bill Osco's hustle. Sensing the precarious nature of the budget, David Allen insisted on being paid in cash at the end of every day. When that didn't happen, he and roughly 10 other crew members physically took 8,000 feet of the film's precious effects footage and refused to give it back until they saw their pay. Meanwhile, the production's inclusion of hardcore genre content was causing issues. There were 2 versions of Flesh Gordon being filmed for release, one containing X-rated sequences for the adult theatrical release that were shot with the same gusto as the rest of the spectacle. Had they been shooting in San Francisco with its more liberal underground cinema scene, things might not have got so heated. However, in early 70s Los Angeles, it was a legal minefield. Filming such footage was considered pandering, and before long, LA Vice came knocking. The cops didn't just raid the production, they confiscated the explicit negatives entirely. Zeem, Osco, and company even had to screen the movie in a judge's chambers to prove it could be edited down to a legally survivable softcore version. The extra XXX footage did make it into a very limited release at the time, however, that has since been lost. Unfortunately, even the collector's edition, released decades later with restored extra footage, doesn't include anything beyond the mild nudity and cheeky humor of the R-rated cut. In one of the great absurdities of Hollywood history, Flesh Gordon almost crashed the Oscars. In 1974, there were so few films with significant visual effects that the Academy's shortlist for Best Visual Effects was practically empty. By sheer technical merit, the film's ramshackle mix of stop-motion creatures, miniature spacecraft, and retro-futurist sets was in the running. But faced with the awkward reality of possibly nominating a softcore porn crossover spoof alongside prestige fare, the Academy punted. Rather than hand Flesh Gordon a shot at Oscar Gold, they scrapped the category entirely that year. In the end, Flesh Gordon stands as one of those once-in-a-lifetime accidents where ambition, sleaze, and creative talent collided in the most chaotic way possible. It was a parody that risked lawsuits, a porno that lost its porn, and a cult B-movie that accidentally incubated the future architects of Hollywood spectacle. Half space opera, half dirty joke, it's the rare film whose making-of story is even stranger than what ended up on screen, and that's saying something for a movie with sex rays, flying phalluses, and a villain named Wang the Perverted. 50 years later, it's still hard to tell whether Flesh Gordon was a spoof of sci-fi, a love letter to it, or a cosmic prank on everyone involved. Maybe it was all three, and maybe that's why it's still orbiting in the strange little galaxy of films that just won't die.